Hello, 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 welcome back to Jen's Books. How are you doing? This video is going to be primarily about the Booker long list. I love a good book prize. Whether you love them or hate them, they're there every year and they can throw up some really good reads. And it's interesting because I find that it's not usually or not always the ones that make it through to the shortlist or that win the prize that really interest me. But by following some of these prizes, I've come across some fantastic readers. I really loved the Women's Prize this year for that, and I tried to have a horse in the race, so I'll buy a few off the long list and see if I can watch them and see if they go through. But it's the Women's Prize that introduced me to Camilla Gradova for the first time, who wrote Children of Paradise, which I really loved, and a collection of short stories, The Doll's Alphabet, which I've bought since. But there are some fantastic writers out there, and these prizes, it can be a really good way of introducing yourself to writers you've never heard of. I certainly found that the case with this year's Booker Prize long list. There's not many writers on there that I know well, so it's really good from that point of view. I mean, I tend to find there are books that I read for pure enjoyment, and there are books sometimes I feel like I should read, and sometimes those off the Booker Prize in particular fall into that latter category. But I'm often really pleasantly surprised, and I've found some favourite books and favourite authors through following the prizes. So I thought I would share with you the books that I've got from the Booker long list. I kind of picked a little bit at random in many ways, because I didn't know much about any of the writers apart from one, which is the one I'll begin with, which is Old God's Time by Sebastian Barry. I love Sebastian Barry. I've spoken about him before in videos, most recently in my Six on the Shelf Westerns edition. I think he's a fabulous writer. Secret Scriptures as well, that was another fantastic book. So he's read some wonderful, but and a long way. So I've read quite a few of his books actually, and he's got a huge back catalogue. So if you find you enjoy his work, there's lots to delve into. I actually already had this. I picked this up from an airport on one of my travels, and I really like these airport editions that are slightly bigger and chunkier. But it says on the back, a recently retired policeman, Tom Kettle, is settling into the quiet of his new home, a lean-to annexed to a Victorian castle overlooking the Irish Sea. For months he has barely seen a soul, catching only glimpses of his eccentric landlord and a nervous young mother who has moved in next door. Occasionally fond memories return of his family, his beloved wife June and their two children. But when two former colleagues turn up at his door with questions about a decades-old case, one which Tom never quite came to terms with, he finds himself pulled into the darkest currents of his past. A beautiful, haunting novel in which nothing is quite like it seems. Sounds amazing. Really love the idea of the location as well. You know, a lean-to by Victorian Castle sounds great. It sounds like it's going to be a thriller. It sounds like it's going to be full of twists and turns. So I'm looking forward to enjoying that. As I say, I really enjoy Sebastian Barry anyway. I haven't got around to reading it yet, but it's one that I already had. The reason I don't buy the whole long list is just really the cost. And I tend to find there'll be a few on there that actually aren't my cup of tea at all. So as I say, it's nice to have a horse in the race to follow through. But this is probably the most I've brought off the long list in some time. And it's really due to this channel more than anything. The second one is Tan Twang Eng, The House of Doors. This is one I have seen in the bookshops for a while now, but hadn't picked up. Got a beautiful cover though. She was actually shortlisted for the previous Man Booker with The Garden of Evening Mist, which I've heard of but never read. But this sounds like a really interesting premise again, and it's about a writer, so you know that's right up my street. And it's got this beautiful cover on the inside as well, really beautiful. So the blurb says it's 1921 and at Cassowary House in the Straits Settlements of Penang, Robert Hamlin is a well-to-do lawyer and his steely wife Leslie a society hostess. Their lives are invigorated when Willie, an old friend of Robert's, comes to stay. Willie Somerset Maugham is one of the greatest writers of his day, but he is beleaguered by an unhappy marriage, ill health and business interests that have gone badly wrong. He is also struggling to write. The more Leslie's friendship with Willie grows, the more clearly she sees him as he is, a man who has no choice but to mask his true self. As Willie prepares to leave and face his demons, Leslie confides of secrets of her own, including how she came to know the charismatic Dr. Sun Yat-sen, a revolutionary fighting to overthrow the imperial dynasty of China. And more scandalous still, she reveals a connection to the case of an Englishwoman charged with murder in the Kuala Lumpur courts, a tragedy drawn from fact and worthy of fiction. So it says it's a masterful novel of public morality and private truth. A century ago. I love a bit of a historical novel, and this is about a writer. It sounds like it's full of secrets. So yeah, it sounds like an interesting read, but so I've not read anything by the author before. So I'm looking forward to seeing what I think about her writing style. Next is one that I picked. I'll be honest, slightly picked this one because it's a shorter read than your standard kind of Booker Prize length, and it's called Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein. And also I thought the cover was quite intriguing. I love anything with birds. Obviously I prefer them when they're not dead, but there was something about the image that drew me in. And also it's another historical novel, which is something that I like to read as well. I don't know anything about her. She has got a previous publication called The Coming Bad Days, but I've never read anything of her work before. It says a young woman moves from the place of her birth to the remote northern country of her forebears to be housekeeper to her brother, whose wife has recently left him. Soon after her arrival, a series of inexplicable events occurs. Collective bovine hysteria, the demise of a ewe and a nearly born lamb, a local dog's phantom pregnancy, a potato blight. She notices that the local suspicion about Inca and his general seems to be directed with some intensity at her, and she senses a mounting threat that lies just beyond the garden gate. And as she feels the hostility growing, pressing at the edges of her brother's property, she fears that, should the grumblings in the town gather themselves into a more defined shape, who knows what might happen and what one might be capable of doing. It says a sharp lyrical voice, which sounds good, but it sounds unsettling. It sounds like there'll be tension there, a sort of a creeping kind of uncanny tension through the novel. Don't know anything more about it than that, but it sounds quite intriguing. As I say, it doesn't look like it's going to take too long to read either. Next, in contrast to that, is Paul Murray, The Bee Sting. Really bright, inviting cover, and I get the impression there's going to be some humour in here as well. I could be wrong, I hope I'm not, but the blurb gives me vibes that it might be there might be some dark humour. It says the Barnes family is in trouble. Dickie's once lucrative car business is going under, but rather than face the music, he's spending his days in the woods building an apocalypse-proof bunker with a renegade handyman. His wife Imelda is selling off her jewellery on eBay and half-heartedly dodging the attentions of fast-talking cattle farmer Big Mike, while their teenage daughter Cass, formerly top of her class, seems to be determined to binge drink her way to her final exams. And 12-year-old PJ, in debt to local sociopath Ears Moran, is putting the final touches to his grand plan to run away from home. The present is in meltdown, but the causes lie deep in the past. If you wanted to change the story, how far back would you have to go? To the car crash 12 months before Cass was born? To the infamous bee sting which ruined Imelda's wedding day? All the way back to Dickie at 10 years old, trembling before his father in the garden, learning how to be a real man. So it feels like a real sort of family saga there, and I just love the names there. There's some names to conjure with. Ears Moran and Big Mike. I don't know why those just amuse me. So I'm hoping there's going to be some humour here. I'm thinking there's probably going to be some pathos too, and secrets and frills and spills. So I'm looking forward to reading this sort of family-focused exploration, and I'll let you know what I think when I've read it. Finally, I picked up Ayobami Adebayo's A Spell of Good Things. This is another writer that I've not read work by, but I've heard lots of good things, so I was really keen. Oh, A Spell of Good Things. I was really keen to pick this one up and give it a go, and when I saw it was on the long list, and there's not been a lot of surprise about the inclusion of this book, so I'm looking forward to cracking in. Apparently she was shortlisted for the Women's Prize with her other novel Stay With Me, so like I say, it's not one I read, but I'm looking forward to reading her work. It says a dazzling story of modern Nigeria and two families caught in the riptides of wealth, power, romantic obsession and political corruption. Enoila is tall for his age, a boy who looks like a man. His father has lost his job, so Enoila spends his days running errands for the local tailor, collecting newspapers and begging, dreaming of a big future. And then we have the golden girl, Wairola, The perfect child of a wealthy family, now an exhausted young doctor in her first year of practice, she is beloved by Kunle, the volatile son of family friends. When a local politician takes an interest in Anoila and sudden violence shatters the family party, Waroila, excuse me if I'm pronouncing these terribly wrong, and Anoila's lives become intertwined in this breathtaking novel. So it sounds like it's sort of a bit of a comment on society. It sounds like it's cultures colliding or classes colliding. It sounds really, really great. As I say, I don't know anything more about it than that. But I've heard of the writer before, and I'm really, really keen to read this one. So that's 5 of the books. I also ordered Pearl, which is written by Sian Hughes, and I'll insert a photo here because it's not arrived yet. I have strong suspicions that it's gone missing on its way to me. I'm not sure whether it's going to arrive or not. But Pearl is a story about a young girl called Marianne whose mother disappears when she's 8 years old with her brother, and then she becomes obsessed with a medieval poem, and it's about whether art can heal past trauma, but also, you know, there's twists and turns and revelations about what actually happened to her mother as the book goes on. Don't know more about it, but it's one that appealed to me for its brevity. Again, at least I'm honest. And one of the books that I'm really interested in reading as well is The Prophet Song by Paul Lynch. And I wasn't able to get a copy of that yet, and I'll probably see how I'm getting on with it. But it's this sort of dystopian society based in Ireland where the government is on brink of tyranny, and it's about a mother of 4 called Eilish who's a scientist, and it's about how she tries to keep her family together when the secret police come knocking on the door. So that actually really, really intrigued me, and I've not got a copy of that yet, but as I say, it's one that I'm hoping to read as the months go by. But what usually happens is the shortlist comes out, and then I start to prioritise which ones I'm going to read if I've not read any by them. But as I say, you know, there are other books on the list that I'm sure are fantastic, but those are the ones that immediately drew me in. There are some that I discounted because I couldn't get hold of them, or because the topics didn't appeal to me. So there are reasons why these are the ones I've selected, and it's more likely than anything that all the ones I didn't select are the ones that are going to be on the shortlist. But it's fun, as I say, to kind of be part of the process and follow it through. So that's my thoughts on prizes. Take them or leave them, love them or loathe them, let me know in the comments. But as I say, I found them as a way to introduce me to writers I haven't come across again. And this year, really, with the Booker, as I say, there's a lot of authors that are new to me. So I'm looking forward to finding out about them and why they've been longlisted. But I'd love to know your thoughts anyway. But until next time, I'll see you again, and take care.